So, considering the picturesque as an aesthetic category, where at one extreme there was the sublime, the imposing, wild, irregular, and even full of horror, and at the other, the beautiful, the most peaceful and soft sides, now we have as well a category that also represents diversity and irregularity. Within the conceptions of picturesque, nature is attractive disorder, variety and not obedience, to a preordinary pattern or suffocating uniformity, neither strict obedience to the laws of geometry. That's to say, nature swinging between the beautiful and sublime at the same time. Edmund Burke, in his work A Philosophical Inquiry into the Origin of Our Ideas of the Sublime and Beautiful, in 1757, when talking about the pleasing horror of a wild place, goes beyond the concept of the picturesque, assuring that it moves in a range of feelings in which attraction, admiration, and fear meld together in the presence of terrible and magnificent natural spectacles. In fact, this second term of the sublime that grew out of Romanticism as a sense of possible threat to the subject's self-preservation. As Edmund Burke assures, everything that operates in a manner analogous to terror is a source of the sublime. It is productive of the strongest emotion which the mind is capable of feeling. So I want to show you a short video to put a little bit in perspective this sublime idea. So just to make a little bit of an example. So this was the same singer, and this is a bit this idea, still not the digital cyborg, but a bit the idea of the hybridization that we can start seeing right now between the matching of categories once considered oppositions. Following Heidegger, man, as shepherd of being, draws things together and into thought. In the Romantic period, technology attempted to make sense of things in nature, so art and technology work to make things sensible, transforming the unknown, as well as things inhabiting the peripheries, into intelligible signs, with characteristics that human can comprehend. Technology and art shepherding the conception nature and man within the picturesque. Humans can also become part of one of the many elements in that wild nature or territory. In such instances, the picturesque produces something new, a relationship between humans and the environment that gets generated from within the rules of the picturesque, but breaks its normative and normalizing demands. In contemporaneity, many of those territories has migrated to the technological digital context. Contemporaneity society, as integrated through networks and coexists with phenomena such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Everything, also refer the Internet of Things, and bioelectronic processes, emerging concept of this hybrid and multidimensional ecosystem. The human being is, then, an integrated being between two environments, the offline and the online, environments that, instead of differentiation, complement each other. All of these phenomena that in the first notion of cyberculture were projected as a utopian or dystopian reality, still to be studied, are now inherent conditions of contemporaneity, complex identities, such as cyborgs and avatars, for example. In contemporaneity environments strongly mediated by the digital technologies, it is hard to maintain a leading enactment or a single and almost theological meaning and codes. In that context, every discourse gets easily contaminated with other texts, disrupting transcendental truths or dualism and creating interesting parallelism between categories one considers opposites, as for example man-machine. The powerful in-betweenness and interconnection present in the digital discourses with all the aesthetic and symbolic paradigma it unfolds is represented by the cyborg metaphor, a semiotic figure that Donna Haraway describes as monstrous and liberating, and whose body, as a text, acts as an assemblage. The relationship between humans and this new environment breaks the picturesque, normative, and proposes a new conception of it, defined by the relationship with the machine. Haraway opens a cyborg paradigm in which the boundaries seem to embrace. As she explained, we are all chimeras, theorized and fabricated hybrids of machine and organism. In short, we are all cyborgs. The cyborg is our ontology. It gives us our politic, said Haraway. As she stated in her researches, technology has indeed dissolved in the human body, an active source from where the cyborg emerged. Considering the cyborg as a referent, it is valid to rethink it not only as a mere metaphor of people's immersion in the cyberspace, but as a process of continuous transformation, almost alchemical, due to the constant translations between discourses and the new conditions it reveals. The cyborg's importance lies in how it rewrites social codes. I want to show you another video. Sorry. This is a big idea.
Gibson's image of computer cowboys hacking a perilous post-humanist lifestyle on a new technological frontier gave hackers and technophiles an identity and a set of ennobling myths. After reading Neuromancer, hackers started to realize that they were in fact, and probably had always been, cyberpunks.
This is part of a very interesting book called Neuromancer. I don't know if you have heard of it, but it's quite of the, let's say, literature that can help to understand this under a non-academical point of view. So here, I refer to the notion of text as a composition of multiple writings brought into dialogue. According to the semiotic theory of Roland Barthes, as well as the concept of intertextuality of Julia Kristeva, which I will explain later, textile semiotic can be very efficient to consider digital spaces as a web of interconnections between text and discourses, especially when under those notions the cyber corpus can be considered, quoting Roland Barthes, to be a textual tissue or fabric of quotations. Indeed, the work of Julia Kristeva and Barthes, both nomads of semiotic and language studies, has become a great support when it comes to deal with the digital cyber phenomena in a context dominated by web, fluxes of data, and hybrid times and spaces. The text as a network of multiple relationships and languages as a performance have been decisive. The arts have embraced the opportunity of realizing the conjunction between human and machine into the cyber figure. From the Cyber Manifesto to cultural futuristic narrative and theories of post-humanism and transhumanism, this conception of cybers does not apply to the militaristic invention of science fiction narratives, but instead to the digital mediation in culture and society, resulting in hybrid entities, always connected and with a constant interrelation with software and computational media. Advances in artificial intelligence, cybernetics, and genomics are blurring the categories of human, animal, and machine under the conceptions of transhumanism and post-humanism. A growing number of artists, philosophers, and self-modifying biohackers are looking to redefine the boundaries of the self as well as the territories that emerge. Another nature interconnected with machines and organic beings. Cyborgs as landscapes and the traveler artist. The exploration and appreciation of this untamed nature as a mix of discourses can be developed by the role of the traveler artist, a character which had assumed that ideal of approaching to what the artist itself considered to be different, as Engelmann and Alexander von Humboldt did in their times. They are interpreters and mediators of unknown and wild landscapes. To achieve that, the artistic adventure imposed them two fundamental tasks. On one hand, to discover an archetype for the representation of the distant landscape, in this case the cyborg archetype. On the other hand, to build a conductive thread, that it is to say a route in territory. So the artist, together with technological tools, can recreate through the cyborg the deep transformations occurring in both cultural and social areas, as well as the very same transformations of the subject itself, a process inherent into posthuman principles. According to Catherine Hales, posthuman does away with the notion of a natural self and emerges when human intelligence is conceptualized as being co-produced with intelligent machines. According to Hales, the posthuman view privileges information over materiality. It considers and imagines the body as a prosthesis for the mind. As happening with nature, through art, it is possible to explore the cyborg landscape, becoming, in that process, the traveling artist who approached to wild and unknown places as an aesthetic experience, exposing itself to strange, beautiful, and even terrifying environments. As Malcolm Andrews called it, the picturesque tourism mediated by technology. Nevertheless, such dynamics of changeability present in the cyborg landscape, interconnected and always in constant movement, cannot be domesticated or categorized. Instead, art and technology can make them visible, to be explored and recognizable. The artist, as Marshall McLuhan assures, has the capacity to detect new environments and to make them visible with art itself. That's why picturesque notions could be so important here, because they are constantly moving and swinging between new categories, generating deep aesthetic experiences. In fact, under that conception of hybrid cultures, mixtures of dichotomic categories, the fields of literature, mythology, and folklore are full of cyborgs' ancestors, which also represent, by a picturesque speech, human condition and relation with social and cultural environments. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein creature can express the Gothic landscape into a composed organic body, brought to life through science fiction different cyborg characters as Ghost in the Shell or Alita Battle Angel. How these two films, for example, can be referred to a projection of dystopic environments, reflection of human annihilation with their own surroundings, and the role of technology in contemporaneity and close future, where humans use technological tools as computational prostheses. I want to also open here 2 more videos. And another one, Alita.
All that stuff is dumped from zone.
Sorry, it's going to be.
You could just tell me what the eyes have seen.
Sorry, I just lose when we have to change this. Well, I didn't want to show exactly that part of the trailer, but it's a little bit to see how the cyber conception has changed. And the relationship between her body is in constant communication with the environment itself. So, okay. So, contemporary digital hybridations. Bereft of a center in cyborgs, all is distributed and in constant movement, the organic alongside and in concord with computational prosthetics altogether. As a consequence of digital embodiment, bodies then become what Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari call assemblages. The self functions as a series of couplings to the other elements. Each body or bodies part acts as an assemblage that gets defined by how it is hooked up to other assemblages under a semiotic approach that will describe exactly what a cyborg means. Dying signifies in a corpus of infinite possibilities of connection, each of them producing different meanings for the cyborg as a sign. The movement and the different forms of assemblages functions, indeed, as Kristeva's notion of intertextuality. By intertextuality, Julia Kristeva dissolved the notion of text as an unity. The elements of a common origin and fixed signifieds are put into question. Therefore, since a text is always in relation with other texts, the dynamics of meaning are always changing. Or digital mediated contemporaneity is a macro system fragmented and interconnected. The text, at the end, is a web of multiple relations. The digital cyborg alludes to a new horizon of meaning where we find ourselves facing a world in which the limits between nature and culture, the object and the subject, the mechanical and the organic, men and women become diffuse. Romantic artists search for means of translating what they show in nature onto paper. In cyborgs, the corporeity becomes a translation of technological mediation. Each representation acts as a performance of constant movements and encounters between texts and crash between binary oppositions. That's to say, the dynamics of intertextuality that dominates the cyborg structure and ontology. So why the cyborg meets the picturesque? The optical quality of cyborgs fits with the visual demands of the picturesque aesthetic, destabilizing the hegemony of a particular means of seeing and framing the picturesque itself and its relation with wild territories, swinging between categories one considered dichotomic. As it was once the mixture of beauty and sublime horror, now we have machine and organic entities melting together, materiality and patterns of information, technology and nature, man as part of the landscape and not the organizer or creator of categories. There are profound dichotomies of those parts of assemblage working together, dichotomies that create unique discourses, unique forms of combination, this time not to please the eye or bring into distance things, but instead to make them visible. Conclusions. If the work of art is the place, as Andy Walsworthy assured, then the cyborg is that territory where the encounters happens. It is that landscape, the cyborg landscape, as a text, an organic entity swinging between the beautiful and the sublime. The disruption occurs because the landscape becomes the observer, who is watching its own transformation. The process of digital embodiment produces cyborgs, humans and machines, the mixtures of categories considered to be dichotomic. Dualism as human, not human, human-machine, human, not human, subject, object, lose their value with cyborgs entities. Thank you very much, and sorry for the technical mistakes.